Good evening to you. Well, you know what I mean. This here is Harry Potter Abridged. And in this episode, our penultimate chapter in a book we like to call Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. This is chapter number 17, and it is entitled The Heir of Slytherin. Because it's time to get to the bottom of everything. That's what this chapter is. This is the, well, it's, I guess you could say for the most part, the resolution of the actual story. There's more to come, one more chapter as I've just indicated, but this is where a lot of the loose threads tie up, between what Hermione found out earlier and what Harry and Ron were able to figure out on their own. They've solved a portion of the mystery, enough to get them into this situation. Well, now Harry in this situation, where he's entering the final chamber. But there's still a lot left to be answered, and so here we are with that. With the last chapter ended, the door opened. What was like the wall slid in half. Of course, the movie shows it as like a big round door with snakes on it. So the screenshot that I chose is at odds with the text, but it looks cool. So there's that. Anyway, let's see. And so, yeah, the chamber is long and dimly lit, and there are towering stone pillars that have more carved serpents on them. So it's not unlike a lot of the rooms below the castle that he often ends up in. This is like a tall. It's not just a long, low room. It's a long, high, tall, big room. Which is worth mentioning for reasons that there's room up there for, if something should maybe fly into the room, for example, and be needed to do some flying things. A tall room would be a great place to have that happen if you were going to write that into the story. So Harry's like, he's obviously nervous, but, he's also a chosen Gryffindor. And so he bravely, very shakily, of course, gets up in that place and starts walking slowly. Those were words, right? That made a sentence, kind of. So he's like, also worried about like making eye contact with the basilisk and then being petrified before he can do anything. So he's it's advisable for him to be using caution right now. So he's like getting ready to like slam his eyes shut, in case he sees something. But he's also wondering where Ginny is, because obviously that was the primary reason that they came down into this chamber. That was the thing that tipped the balance, as it were. That and the information they learned. I guess maybe they might have. Well, no, whatever. So he's heading down between the columns. He's making careful footsteps, but they're echoing off the shadowy walls. And so it's not until he gets to the end, of course, of all the pillars that he then is able to make out that the back wall has a giant statue on it that goes all the way up. And there's a big face, and it's interesting. It says it was ancient and monkey-like. I'm like, how ancient is Hogwarts if it looks like a different race of being? Like, that's kind of crazy. I mean, that's not to say that maybe in her version of her history of her universe that there wasn't, there weren't magic wielding primates predating man. Who knows? Maybe there were, but something as civilized as a school with people wearing uniforms and robes and shit, doesn't seem ancient enough to also warrant the statue being monkey-like. I don't know. Maybe there's something about it that I'm misunderstanding, but like in my mind, that makes me think that that's like the shape of the skull, and I don't know. But there's also a long, thin beard. But it has sweeping robes. It's all carved out of stone, but still. So WTF? I don't know. Maybe there's something I'm just not thinking of there. I'll look to see what you guys say. Maybe somebody will have some idea that I'm not thinking of, because that's more than likely. Let's see here. And so then Harry looks down the statue, and between its legs on the ground there is a figure, and he sees the red hair, and he's like, oh shit, it's Ginny. So he runs over, and in a scenario that not exactly mimics his father, but that puts him in a similar situation, he flings down his wand as he goes to his knees to check on Ginny. And like I mean, I know he's just 12 and he's just a second year, and like, but he's already met a form of Voldemort once in his life. Like, how on earth? Because it says he flings it. It doesn't say that he like dropped it in like his rush to get to his knees. It says he flung it. Where is it again? He flung his wand aside and grabs Ginny's shoulders. I understand, like, maybe you need to use both your hands, but don't just like slide it back in your pocket, put it on your knees. Don't sling it aside. But anyway, like I said, in a way, it sort of mirrors what happens to Harry's father when Voldemort comes to kill them. He'd put his wand down just for a moment, like when he was playing with little Harry or something like that, and sure enough, he didn't actually even have a chance to get back to it to do any legit defense. Because, I mean, if he had, he might have, Voldemort very well probably still would have triumphed, but it would have been a different scenario. And who knows, maybe he wouldn't have. But James didn't have a wand in his hand. And so it didn't, Anyway, I'm just saying, it makes me think of that a little bit. It's a little different, obviously, but anyway. And so Harry's like, please don't be dead. Please, 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 please don't be dead. And she doesn't look, she's not petrified. Her eyes are closed, and she's cold, but she's not all stiff and froze up and whatnot. So Harry's like trying to wake her up, and he's like, please wake up, please wake up. And then he hears a voice. She won't wake. And Harry's like, whoa, who's got that? And there, after it takes him a minute to like figure it out, but there is what probably would look like a hologram, a fuzzy hologram, Star Wars style, but maybe not blue, version of Riddle from the diary. And he's like, Tom Riddle? The fuck, bro? Like, you're from 50 years ago. How could you be here? And also, what do you mean she won't wake? And he's like, she's not dead. And he's like, no, she's still alive, but only just. And again, we get the actual mention of 50 years ago. Because Harry's like trying to like, put two and two together here. Because like, it was one thing to be inside of a memory from 50 years ago, but to almost certainly be in the here and now and not having, done any timey-wimey weird shit, and to like suddenly be talking to somebody who was a student at the school 50 years ago, that would strain, the brain a little bit for a moment. You have to kind of like, just like when he first was in the memory, he was talking to Professor Dippet until he realized that nobody knew he was there. Well, this case, it's not the same situation, but there's still like a thing to accept that is not something you would normally consider being possible. So, and Harry's like, "Are you a ghost?" And Riddle says that he is a memory that has been preserved in a diary. Guess what? For 50 years. Um, and Riddle points to the diary to kind of like bring his whole point home about where the memory was stored. And so this also brings up, because some people would say that at this point the Horcrux plot wasn't written yet, and maybe not. I don't know if she's ever confirmed or denied. It doesn't seem like there've been a lot of people who've answered questions that I've had about characters and like maybe like situations in their lives or their futures or their pasts, but as far as like when she decided to come up with certain plot points, it doesn't seem like those kind of questions have been answered, which I mean is understandable because it will change people's perception to a certain degree when you're like, well, was Scabbers really Peter Pettigrew the whole time? Some people will say no. But without her ever confirming or denying, then we can sort of like suspend our disbelief and go with it and say yes. But there are, and I'm going to have to keep an eye out for them, but there are, I noticed a couple of lines in this chapter today that I think support the idea that she at least had a loose idea of the Horcrux thing, even if she hadn't fleshed it all the way out to the 7-part soul and all of that bit. So anyway, so he sees the diary and it takes him, like I have to remind myself sometimes, because obviously if you've read it, and especially if you've read it and or listened to it many times, pretty much exactly where all this is going. Even if it's been a while, like you might forget some details, but now that we're at this part of the story, like it's pretty like, all right, this is how it's going to go down. But you have to remember that every time you're reading it, it's Harry's first time going through the situation. So, it takes him a minute to even realize like why the diary's there, and then he's like, oh. But even then, and now this is something where like some people might on the surface be like, oh, Harry's stupid, but like again, this is all happening to him for the first time. Also, this next bit shows that he is he looks at the best in people regardless, and he has no idea who Tom Riddle is yet, FYI, just reminder. So he's like, you gotta help me, man. Like, we gotta get her out of here. There's a basilisk, and like, and obviously, like in retrospect, it is almost kind of like silly to think that he's like, doing this, but he just doesn't know, and he is 12 too. Let's not forget that bit too. He's a mature 12, but he's 12. He's like, please help me, and Riddle's just standing there, and then he goes to pick up his wand. Dun, dun, dun. And of course, it's not there. And then he looks up and he realizes that Riddle has the wand and he's twirling it between his fingers. So this memory has started to gain some solidification if it can pick up a wand and twirl it between its ghostly like fingers. And even then Harry's like, oh, thanks. Like reaches out his hand to grab it, and Riddles just starts smiling at him, and he's like, But then he's like, no, but listen, dude, like we can't, like we gotta go. This is like a bad situation. We don't want to be in this situation. Let's go. The basilisk is gonna come, and Riddle's like, nope. Thing about that is that it's not gonna come until it's called. And Harry's like, okay, what the fuck? Like, don't understand anything you're telling me right now. Like, at least at the end of Philosopher's Stone, like when he runs into Riddle, there's a lot of confusion there too. But it's like Quirrell's actually telling him, like, this is what I did and this is what I did. He's like, no, not you. You didn't do it. But it's like the thing itself is being presented straight away, and Harry just has to come to accept it. Here, it's like all the hints have been there, but like nothing. Riddle hasn't told him anything yet, so he's just kind of like toying with him. And so Harry really has no reason to expect the worst yet. It's like it takes some time for it to sort of sink in. Like he has to. And so he's like, give me my wand. I'm gonna need it. And Riddle smiles even wider, and he's like, oh, you won't be needing it. And he's like, what the, damn it, what are you talking about? And so Riddle goes into his whole little, I've waited a long time for this. You know, he has, it's amazing because this is teenage Riddle, but he totally has his villain speech pretty much worked out. Like he is already like he's fashioned himself into like a prototypical villain as like a 15-year-old boy or however old he is at this stage in his life that he's frozen in. Anyway, and so he's like, I've waited a long time for this, to see you, to speak with you. And Harry's still like, bro, we're in the Chamber of Secrets. Can we like get out and then you can ask me anything you want? And Riddle's like, nope, we're going to chat now. And Harry's like, what on earth? And he's like, well, okay, what happened to Ginny then? So if we're here for a moment, let me ask you a question. And so Riddle explains that Ginny's been writing in the diary, and that in opening her heart and soul to the diary, she has given, how is it worded? Let me make sure I get this part right. And he like mocks Ginny and like says things, Riddle does, that she wrote. He repeats some things that she wrote about Harry, and just, and he's just like saying, it was very boring. It's like he sounds like a little bit like he's a bit Malfoy-ish in his way, but different. Like Riddle was more sophisticated and had more charm when he was at school than Malfoy. Malfoy is like very like sycophantic almost. I mean, like he gets more like independent later, but for a long time he just like sucks up to Snape all the time, and he's only like able to like act kind of smarmy when he's got Crabbe and Goyle with him, which is most of the time, but still, like Riddle like is totally like confident on his own. He prefers to be on his own. He just, but when he's talking about this stuff, and he's like, it was very boring. Talking about all the stuff that Ginny had to say. Anyway, but he's like, I was patient, So again, we're just getting the whole story and the more stuff that she said and how she's confiding in the diary, and Riddle laughs, and it's mentioned that it's a high, cold laugh, which is the description of, yeah, I think it happens somewhere in the first book where Harry's recurring dream that it used to just have a flash of green light now has a high, cold laugh in it. So it's the trademark description for how Voldemort laughs. But we haven't quite gotten there yet, folks. We're almost there, though. And it makes the hair on Harry's neck stand up. And Riddle even says, I've always been able to charm the people I needed. So, and then he says, Ginny poured out her soul to me, and her soul happened to be exactly what I wanted. And so, like, to me, since this particular Horcrux, now again, like, it may not have been a fully fleshed out idea at this point, or it might have. But since this Horcrux, assuming that it was, just starting with that assumption, that it was fully realized as that in the writing of this novel, it has a specific quality about it that none of the other ones do, because it's sort of been imbued with this 15-year-old memory version of Riddle. So it has like the ability in a weird sort of way, because it's almost like it makes me think of like a magic mashup of like how later in the books Dumbledore shows Harry, and we see Snape do it too, like how to extract memories from one's mind and put it into the pensive. Well, if you were able to use that same type of magic and put it into an object along with well, and I guess maybe he did that part first, right? And then made the Horcrux later out of this particular object. And so, therefore, in doing so, assuming this is how it happened, combined a seventh of his soul with a memory version of himself, which, like, if you just think about it, like in some sort of, like, if math was some kind of like weird, I mean, magic was like some sort of like scientific thingy, like that they're, they don't know, that these two things would like somehow like interact with one another and like learn from one another and like maybe merge in some sort of weird way, because again, magic. Anyway, so wait, what was my point in saying that? 'Cause I got it so into the details of what I was thinking might have happened. Oh, but then he said it was her soul that I wanted. So, because it seems that like what's happened is that like by adding some of, I don't, again, with percentages of souls, I don't know, but with Jenny sort of like in some sort of way dumping a portion of her soul into this diary, it's like it gave Riddle and this piece of Voldemort's soul like more soul to work with. I don't know, which is why he's able to be like almost a solid being, but still has like a translucent quality about. I mean, yeah, whatever. I know that's like Preston Jacobs level theorizing, quote unquote theorizing there, but whatever. It came to my mind today, and that is part of what I was, and I thought there was one other line. We'll see if that's not true, but that was one of the lines that made me think that maybe the Horcrux idea was at least partially formed, if not fully formed. And I don't know, maybe not. Anyway, so he explains more about her fears and secrets and all of this stuff, and he's saying, I grew more powerful, and oh yeah, and he says powerful enough to start feeding Miss Weasley a few of my secrets, to start pouring a little of my soul back into her. And so, again, that's also described right after that that basically he was possessing her. But again, like that's the whole point. Like the fact that like a memory by itself could possess her, like that seems to be a bit much. But with a portion of the soul, with the memory combined, then possession seems like it could make a little bit more sense. So anyway, so then he goes on to list all of the things that happened throughout the year and explained how Jenny did them all under his influence. And Harry's like, no. Because he, denial is a nice theme here. It continues for a little while until he finally gets to acceptance and then anger and all that good stuff. And Riddle's like, yes. And he even explains that she didn't know what she was doing, because, her diary entries would be like, I think I did this thing because I don't remember what happened and I had paint all down my front. Which, you know what? I didn't think about that. Maybe that was the whole thing with the writing on the wall in the first place and why it wouldn't come off. I didn't even think about that. That's like so simple that it like and so inconsequential overall, but it looked like blood, but it was clearly red paint. She says I have paint down my front. So that's why it didn't come off right away. I mean, I'm sure like there's magical way, because it goes away. It's never mentioned after this book, but but a squib couldn't take it off with a magical mess remover. And well, I guess not. I mean, you might have thought that something that had magical in the title would, but whatever. This is really the least important tangent of them all, so we're moving on. So yeah, Jenny is coming to realize that she's like, I think I'm the one who's attacking everyone. So Tom's reading all this in his little sing-songy girl voice, mocking Jenny, and Harry's getting pissed at this point. And so Riddle's going on. It's it took her a long time to stop trusting it, and so he explains how she tried to throw it away, and he's like, and that's where you came in, because Harry obviously did find it. And so he started talking to him, and he's like, I was most anxious to meet you. And Harry's like, why? Harry's really starting to get pissed now. And it's like, well, Jenny told me what happened with you and Lord Voldemort, basically, your whole history and what had happened. And so he decided to show him that framing of Hagrid to gain his trust. And Harry's like, Hagrid's my friend, you motherfucker. And you framed his ass. I thought you made a mistake, but you're really just an asshole. And Riddle explains that it was his word against Hagrid's, and of course, Riddle's well-spoken, and he's head boy, and brilliant, and parentless but brave, just all that bullshit. I'm sorry, not head boy yet, although he did become head boy, but prefect versus Hagrid, who we all know doesn't do terribly well under pressure. I mean, that's just kind of one of his ways to describe his character. I mean, in a physical pressure situation, if he has to fight, that's not a problem. But when he's being called under scrutiny, verbally, it depends. If he gets angry and he feels comfortable, then he actually comes out with some pretty good shit usually. But if he's nervous and scared that he's going to screw something up by saying the wrong thing, or he feels like he's being judged by people who have power over him, then yeah, he kind of comes to pieces. And don't get me wrong, that's a pretty shitty situation for anyone to be in. So anyway, yeah, so basically Riddle explains how it was fairly easy for him to win the case against Hagrid, although I still don't understand that if Aragog got into the forest. I'm just going to put that out there one more time. And even Riddle says, even I was surprised at how well the plan worked, because how's somebody going to think that Hagrid was the heir of Slytherin? And he says that it took him 5 years to figure out how to open the chamber, figure out where the entrance was even, and then to do it. And then he mentions that Dumbledore was the only one who never really liked him and didn't seem, and who said Hagrid was innocent and this, that, and the other. And Harry's like, yeah, I bet Dumbledore saw right through your ass, boy. And he's like, yeah, he watched me. He kept an eye out on me. So he knew after that he couldn't open the chamber again, which of course makes sense, because that would have also exonerated Hagrid, which he wasn't about to have happen. Even though Hagrid managed to avoid prison at that point, but he was still wrongfully expelled, and his wand was snapped in two. Anyway, hashtag justice for Hagrid. I wonder if Hagrid... See, she writes futures for everybody to a certain degree, and we celebrate their birthdays and stuff. The other day it was Harry's 38th or 40, something high-ish birthday. I'm like, that would make Hagrid 70 something, right? I wonder if Hagrid's still alive in her mind. Anyway, I mean, because I don't know, if the giant blood thing would give him longer life or shorter life. I don't really know. I mean, outside of the violence aspect of it, I have no idea. And I mean violence aspect of giants and their life expectancies. If you take the fact that they kill each other out of the picture, what is it then? Anyway, Let's see. So many cul-de-sacs in our journey. We just drive down them, turn back around, get the fuck out. Right. So Riddle decided before he left school that he was going to leave this diary behind to preserve his 16-year-old, there it is, self, in there, that he would be able to lead somebody else in his footsteps to do the same shit that he was doing before, which he phrases as Salazar Slytherin's noble work, aka the purging of the mudbloods and sympathizers, basically. Just a little Thanos-style partial genocide type dealio. Nothing major. But Harry's like, well, it's not going so well. Nobody's died yet. Everybody's just petrified. And they're going to be back tonight, so... And he's like, Riddle's like, well, that's fine and all, because that's not really what I care about anymore. Like, I kind of set my sights on you. Didn't you gather that? And of course Harry didn't, because he doesn't think about these things, because we still haven't got to the reveal yet, BTW. And so then he's like, well, and the shitty thing about that I changed my target to you, is that the next thing I know, the diary's back in Ginny's hands, and we find out that Ginny saw Harry with it in that point in time when his book, when Malfoy pulled it out of his bag, or off the floor, when his bag split, when the troll was trying to sing him dwarf was trying to sing him the singing Valentine. Anyway, so she saw it and she stole it back. It was Ginny that rifled through his trunk looking for the diary and found it and stole it back. So the enemy wasn't really an enemy after all. She was just panicked because she was like, what if Harry finds out how this works, and he finds out what I've done, and she's young and she's been caught up in some fucked up shit. She didn't want anybody to know. So Riddle took back over her body again, and this time he made her write the new message on the wall and come down into the chamber. And again, we get a description of her being very boring because she was struggling and crying. That's cute. Not. And so, yeah, he's like, well, and she put enough into me at this point that I was able to leave the pages of the diary. And so he's been waiting in the chamber ever since. And here he's like, I knew you'd come. And so he's like, I've got all these questions for you. And Harry's like, what the fuck? And so Riddle asks him, because now he's found out about, what happens with Harry. So he's like, so how did you defeat the, what did he call himself? The greatest wizard of all time. And Harry's like, why do you care about that? Voldemort's after your time. And then we get the anagram, where Riddle's like, Voldemort is my past, present, and future. And then he pulls out his wand and writes, and this is not just in the movie, folks, this is actually in the book. He writes in the air, Tom Marvolo Riddle, rearranges the letters, and they say, I am Lord Voldemort. Which does seem a little ridiculous, but then by the same token, if you put it in the context of a 15, 16-year-old doing it, it seems like a little more plausible, because they have time. And they get creative. And some of them that are really intelligent get very creative. So, okay, fine. And he's like, I was already using it at Hogwarts. But he says, well, to my most intimate friends, of course. Which, as if Riddle ever actually had real friends. But whatever. And so we find out that he's still, well, not still, but that he thinks of his father as a filthy muggle. And that, he's like, I couldn't keep that name, his filthy name or whatever, because I have the blood of Salazar Slytherin through my mother's side, and I I couldn't keep that common name and all this shit. And we get a little hint of like part of why you mad. Tell him why you mad, son. Because my father abandoned me before I was born, just because he found out his wife was a witch. Shock, I would say, but yeah, kind of shitty all the same. But the problem is that it's not really that clean cut. There was a love potion involved. So it was kind of screwed on both sides. But anyway, Merope was no saint. Or Merope, however the fuck you say her name. It's a strange name. So he's like, no, I fashioned myself a new name. Which, it is such a, like, teen villain goth fantasy to, like, fashion yourself a scary name. That people will fear to speak. And then it actually fucking happens. And you're like, oh, man. But yeah, so that's that we learned that's actually the origin of Lord Voldemort. Like, it just happens to sound kind of scary. Like, and so it works, especially if you do horrible shit. And so Harry's now like having to accommodate not only that there's a living memory, so to speak, out of a diary, standing there speaking to him and actually becoming more clear all the time, but this person who was a teenager 50 years ago actually is the teenager that grew up to be Lord Voldemort, the person who killed his parents and almost him. Oh. Oh yeah. When Voldemort was rhapsodizing about how his as Tom Riddle was rhapsodizing about how his name would be one that wizards everywhere would fear to speak when he became the greatest sorcerer in the world. And of course, Harry's like, yeah, about that. Nah, bruh. Nope. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, 'cause, don't mean to poop on your parade or nothing like that, but Dumbledore is the greatest sorcerer in the world. He's the only one that you're scared of or whatever. But then Riddle, of course, counters with, he's been driven from this school by the mere memory of me. But, and Harry's, like, kind of playing it at trying to figure something out right now. He's like, he's not as gone as you might think. He's just trying to, like, keep Riddle from getting too confident here now that he knows who he is, I guess. But he's also, like, pissed at him, too. And then, as Riddle's about to say something else, there's a sound in the distance. And lo and behold, there's music. An eerie, spine-tingling music. And after a little bit of time and the music getting louder, flames erupt at the top of the nearest pillar and enter Fawkes the Phoenix, who is an incredibly, very useful character in the story, and also really cool bird. I'm like, if I had to pick, I was thinking about this earlier, like, I think if I had to pick one of the pets from the story, I mean, out of any pets that anybody has in this story, I think I would take Fawkes. And I know that's like the easy answer in a way, but I'm like, well, shit, yeah, it is. I mean, like, you got healing powers and the tears, you got extreme loyalty, you got other things that are going to be shown later in this chapter. You got all kinds of good stuff. And beautiful, except for when it's burning. So yeah, I mean, and red and gold, like, I mean, that's pretty amazing. Also, Fawkes seems to be like the only, well, no, house elves can do it too. I say Fawkes can definitely like do its own like bird apparition inside the school. Like even though they heard the singing just now, like Fawkes just like came into being out of that fireball, if I'm not mistaken. Like not came into being, but like came into being in that room out of that fireball, and we see him disappear in fire later in like book 5, I believe. Anyway, yeah, incredibly good pet to have. Anyway, so it takes a second for Harry to realize what's going on. Of course, I'm just laying it out there, but so the bird flies straight at Harry, and it drops something at his feet, and then it lands, circles back around, and lands on his shoulder. And it has a long, sharp, golden beak. Better to poke your eyes out with. And Riddle's like, it's a phoenix. And Harry's like, oh shit, it's Fawkes. Because he did, I think at this point he's only seen Fawkes on a burning day, so he hasn't actually seen him in like his most magnificent as he is currently. And Fawkes actually squeezes his shoulder like, yeah, it's me, bro. I got your back, son. And then Riddle's like, and the sorting hat is on the floor now? And Harry's like, that it is. Riddle's like, what in the world? So he's laughing at him. He's like, so this is what Dumbledore sends his defender. Which is interesting because, like, it's sort of described as being sent to him, but I don't think that Dumbledore had any conscious thought involved in this process. I think that it comes down to Fawkes, like it being magical in his own sort of way and being able to detect, like, somebody who's loyal to his person, Dumbledore, being in trouble. So I think, I don't know, to me that's what's going on there. But anyway, who knows though? I mean, Dumbledore does a lot of amazing things, so anything's possible. And Harry's like, well, thinking to himself, like, well, this is a little strange, like a bird and a sorting hat, but I mean, I'm not by myself anymore, and I damn sure was up until this point, with Ron stuck back behind me and Ginny passed out. Was totally alone. So anyway, so Riddle finally gets down to the question he's been wanting to ask, and he's like, so I know what happened. I grow up to be a badass, and you get born, and I try to kill you, and you survived. Explain. So Harry's like, fuck, and Riddle's outline's becoming more sharp, like the opposite of the pictures in Back to the Future, and Harry, like, let's see, Harry's like, well, nobody knows why, because at this point, as far as he knows, nobody does know why he survived. But he's like, I'm sorry, he's like, I don't know why you lost your powers. He said, I do know why you couldn't kill me, though. He said, because my mother saved me, my common muggle-born mother. He's got to get that in there. And then Harry, like, just decides to go in, like, fuck you. Like, he's like, I've seen you. You're a mess. You're barely alive. You're like vapor. You're ugly. Just on and on. And so Riddle does the best he can to ignore this information, and he's like, so, okay, right, your mom died, that's a powerful thing, I didn't think about that, of course, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, so you're not special after all. But he's like, there are some likenesses between us. We're orphans, half-bloods, raised by muggles. And also probably the only two parcel mouths to come to Hogwarts since the great Slytherin himself. And he also points that they look a little bit similar because they're both like sort of skinny and dark haired and whatever. And so he's like, well, it was just chance then. Well, that's great. Cool. He's like, well, now you're gonna learn that I'm gonna kill you, which is not exactly what he says, but it is one of those, like, every time the villain in this kind of story gets ready to do the thing that's basically going to end the hero's life, i.e. kill them, there's always a process so that the process can be undone. It's never like just pull the trigger or, flash the wand and say the spell. Instead of just killing him outright, which maybe he could do. I don't know if maybe that's the point. I guess maybe that's the point. Okay, maybe I'm jumping the gun here, because I even though Riddle's like memory soul thing is holding Harry's wand, is it powerful enough to cast a spell? It does something later in the chapter. Maybe it could have killed Harry. I don't know. But instead, that's not what he does. He instead turns to the giant statue and says in parcel tongue some shit about, what does he say? Let's see. Speak to me, Slytherin, greatest of the Hogwarts Four. Greatest and most terrible. Anyway, so Harry looks up at the statue, and some fairly horrible things happen. The big stone face moves, and the mouth opens, and there's like a big black hole there, and he can hear something stirring inside the statue's mouth. And of course, it's time for the basilisk to enter the picture. You don't tease a giant snake for an entire book and then not put the damn snake in the book. So here comes the snake. And then he starts backing away, and he hits the wall, and then he closes his eyes and starts to move, and then he feels Fawkes take off from his shoulder, and he's like, So anyway, and so he feels the floor shudder, and so he knows that the basilisk is on the floor in play, and he could almost visualize what it looked like now that he could hear it. And then he hears Riddle command the basilisk to kill him, and so this brings me to something else that I thought about earlier today, or maybe it was yesterday. It doesn't matter. Something that I thought about recently in terms of this chapter. Wouldn't it have been interesting if Harry had remembered in the midst of all this? And, I guess it would have been difficult because he can't look at the basilisk without potentially getting petrified. And I don't really understand how that works with Riddle. I don't know if Riddle's looking at him or not. But, and I know Riddle's not exactly a ghost or a person or whatever the fuck, but still. Anyway, what if Harry had been able to speak Parseltongue in this moment and been able to counter command the snake? Don't get me wrong, I understand fully why, narratively speaking. There's things that happen in this scene that set up stuff that happens at the end of the 7th book. So it's it's important, but it's just a thought, because technically Harry's the only other person in existence at this point. In fact, actually the only living person who could potentially command this beast. But that would have left a lot of things open, and they would have had to have been closed in different ways that wouldn't have been nearly as dramatic or interesting, probably. So, anyway, so Harry can hear the basilisk coming, and he's keeping his eyes shut, and he's running sideways against the wall, trying to just feel his way, and then he trips and he falls, and he can feel the serpent getting closer. He knows it. He can hear it. I should say, not feel it. And then he hears a loud spitting sound above him, and something heavy hits Harry really hard, which is part of the basilisk's body, of course. And he was like smashed against the wall. He thinks he's about to be attacked, but instead he hears more hissing and hears like thrashing against the pillars and all of that. And so he's like, what the? This isn't. I wouldn't think this is how it would be if the snake was just coming up on me and was getting ready to attack. I kind of think it would just fucking attack and I would be dead. So he decides to open his eyes a little bit and squint, and he sees the snake is like really like it's standing way high up, like its head's way up off the ground, and it's like moving and weaving drunkenly back and forth, and then he realizes that the reason why it's doing this is because Fawkes is flying up high. As I said earlier, we need a tall chamber to make all this work, and so we have one. And so Fawkes is soaring around, and like the basilisk is snapping at him. And so I don't really know if like Fawkes is somehow like the one animal that's immune to the stare of the basilisk. I mean, it would make sense that there would be at least a creature out there that could be immune to it, and Fawkes seems to be able to withstand a lot. It's almost like he can like things can pass through him, or I don't really understand it, but anyway, and then Fawkes dives, and you see his beak sink out of sight, and then blood starts showering all over the floor, and so you start to get the idea that okay, well, we know what's happening here. Fawkes is putting out the basilisk's eyes, so the death stare is no longer in the equation. And sure enough, as Harry's like sort of like in awe of this whole situation, watching it, the basilisk turns in his direction, and if it still had eyes, that would have been it for Harry. But instead, he sees that the eyes have been punctured. And it's interesting that it needed that Fawkes used its beak. Like, why not just use your talons? Wouldn't that be easier, like from a standpoint of flying? I mean, and aren't they sharp enough? Maybe they're not. It just seems like, I mean, like, yeah, whatever. That's nitpicking, I know, but I'm just saying. Because I guess part of the reason why I think of that too is like, again, if the eye contact thing is a thing, then like diving and using the beak puts your eye like directly in the direction of its eye. So if that's a thing, I don't know, maybe Fawkes is immune. We don't ever get an explanation about that part. But anyway, bottom line, Fawkes takes away the initial threat of the stare. So now Riddle's like screaming at the basilisk to leave the bird alone and to go after Harry. Like, you can still smell him, kill him, blah, blah, blah. He says that a couple of times in this chapter, if I'm not mistaken. Like, almost the exact same list of commands. And so the serpent like starts to obey. And Fawkes is still like just fucking with him and like just kind of like circling around and like scratching at his nose and like, you know, just being like a much more dangerous version of a fly that's annoying the hell out of somebody. And Harry's like calling for help because somewhere in his mind, I mean, he'd been saying this phrase over and over in his mind: "Help at Hogwarts will be given to those who ask for it." It doesn't actually get like brought up in this passage. It's not like one of those, you know, Lord of the Rings moments where like Frodo remembers what Gandalf said kind of thing. It's not that, but it's like it is without actually saying it. It's like he just says, "Help me," in the moment after that, the snake's tail whips across the floor, and it happens to bring the Sorting Hat into his arms. And so he's like, huh. So he's like, well, this doesn't make any sense, but it's also here, and so whatever. So he puts it on and goes to the floor, like to avoid getting hit again. And he's like, help me, please, hat that almost put me in the wrong house. Please help me. And so the hat doesn't say anything, but then like it kind of like grabs and contracts, and then like as soon as that's over, it something hard hits him in the head, and maybe not the best delivery method for a sword, but whatever. He got one, because sure enough, coming out, once he took the hat off and managed to not pass out, he realized that he had a something long and hard beneath it. But it's the sword of Gryffindor. And so Riddle's still yelling at the basilisk to kill the boy and leave the bird, etc., etc. Smell him, kill him, him, etc. And so now Harry's got a sword in his hand. So he's like, well, I mean, I've got a weapon at least. And so the snake can smell him. I mean, Riddle's not wrong about that. And so the snake starts kind of pulling it together. And so he finally turns to face Harry, and it lunges, and Harry dodges one time, and it hits the wall. And then it lunged again, and this time he got closer, and because his tongue hit Harry, so now he knows where he is. And so the basilisk lunges a third time, and this time his aim was true. And somehow, in blindly lunging to bite a human, Harry manages to get inside of its mouth enough to, I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense. Snakes' mouths do open really wide. But he manages to, shove the sword straight up through the roof of its mouth and presumably into its brain. And so blood comes all over the place, and but then as soon as that's happening, as soon as he's driven his sword home, as it were, he has this searing pain in his arm just above his elbow, and he's like, fuck. So one fang, out of all the fangs in a snake's mouth, one fang went through one arm, and it's going deeper and deeper into his arm, and then the basilisk falls over and it breaks off. And that had to feel great. And somehow none of the other ones randomly catch him as it falls, but that one is in there. So he wrenches it out, but it doesn't matter. He feels this insane pain. And really, it's almost impossible to think that he didn't just die immediately. But again, drama. So he feels white-hot pain spreading, and he drops the fang, and dun, 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 his vision starts to go foggy. I mean, he is going fairly quickly, I guess. I mean, the vision's already going foggy. That's pretty fast. So as venoms go, I guess. And the chamber is dissolving. So yeah, I mean, shit's getting ugly pretty quickly. And he hears Fawkes land next to him, and he's like, "Oh, Fawkes, you were brilliant." And thus begins the secondary relationship between Harry and Fawkes. Harry's got Hedwig is his main animal friend, magical animal friend, and Fawkes is Dumbledore's, but Fawkes has sort of for more than one reason, Fawkes has a special relationship with Harry. And I do wonder if Fawkes is able in any kind of way to detect that Harry's wand came from him. I don't know how intelligent these animals are. They're intelligent, but I mean, I don't know. Anyway, and so he feels Fawkes lay his head on the spot on his arm where the fang pierced him. And of course he's not thinking right now because he's losing consciousness, and he can hear Riddle walking up. So I mean, again, he's become pretty fucking solid if you can hear his footsteps. And he's like, "You're dead, Harry Potter." Then he's like, "Even Dumbledore's bird knows it. Look what he's doing. He's crying." And sure enough, there's some tears on his wound. And Riddle's like, "I'm going to watch you die. Take your time." And so Harry's like, oh man, everything feels crazy. He's drowsy, the world's spinning, all that good shit. And Riddle continues his like, so ends the famous Harry Potter, alone in the Chamber of Secrets, forsaken by his friends, you know, and just and oh yeah, and some more self-aggrandizing. Defeated at last by the Dark Lord he so unwisely challenged. Yeah, so he just says more horrible shit about how you'll be with your mother soon, and how she bought you 12 years of borrowed time. This is all like, it's fairly quote worthy because it's just so cunty, and also because it's like gives you an insight into who Voldemort becomes because it came straight from this person. So who he is now because of who he was. Because it's clear that not a whole lot's changed except that he's just become more ruthless than he was then. And that's saying something. But Harry's like, well, if this is dying, I mean, well, I could think of worse ways for it to be. And then he's like, but, because like the pain's fading. He's like, this isn't really so bad. But then he's like, wait a minute, like everything's not fading away anymore. It's all coming back into focus. And he gives himself a little shake. And there's Fawkes still resting his head there on his arm. And then he's like, wait, there's not a wound under those tears anymore. And so Riddle then, starts to shoo Fawkes away, but that doesn't work. But then he pulls the wand out, and he does there's like a bang like a gun, and Fawkes takes flight again. I don't know, again, what exactly he was able to muster there, because obviously he didn't kill Fawkes. And Fawkes didn't really leave, he just flew off for a moment. So again, I don't really know exactly how powerful Riddle's memory with a wand is, because I mean the magic comes from the person, not just the wand is just a channel. So anyway, but of course in true villainous fashion, he's like, well, it makes no matter. In fact, I prefer it this way. Now I can kill you without a wand because I've got yours. And so then Fawkes comes flying back overhead, and he drops something at Harry's feet, and he's like, oh, it's the diary. And it takes him a second, and he's like, wait a minute. And so, how is it described? Almost as if he had, where is it? Dun, 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 dun. As though he had meant to do it all along, which, I mean, so you do kind of wonder, like, if Harry had some kind of innate sense that this thing would do this thing or what. But anyway, he picks up the basilisk fang on the ground and stabs the diary with it. And then there's like a big, of course, the what do you want to call it? Like the death scream of the villain, because there's a long, dreadful, piercing scream. And then ink spurts all out of the diary in torrents, it says. And it's kind of interesting because you can sort of imagine that it's like the ink of the years that have anytime I don't know whatever. I don't know how many times the diary's actually been written in it, but it's just kind of an interesting I don't know if it's supposed to represent all the ink that was actually ever in it, or if it's more of like a representation of the soul eking out. I don't know, man. So many questions, bro. So many fucking questions. Anyway, so there's the scream, and then, the Riddle's gone. He writhes and twists and screams, and then he's gone. And Harry's wand falls to the ground with a clatter, because, of course, a clatter is the only sound that's applicable there. And so now all you hear is the drip, drip of the ink. And so Harry gets himself up, and he gets his wand, finally. And he's just like, kind of feels very, shaken, obviously. That was an extremely traumatic event. So he gets all the shit together, and then he, and he grabs the sword back out of the basilisk, which is important. And then he hears a faint moan from the end of the chamber, and sure enough, Ginny is waking up because all of that soul, quote unquote, I'm air quoting real hard right now, some of that soul is all back in her now and not in Riddle anymore. So the connection has been broken. And so Harry runs over, and he doesn't throw his wand down this time, but it doesn't matter. And she sits up, and then she looks around, and there's some fucking crazy shit to see when you look around this place right now. There's a giant dead basilisk. Harry has blood all over him. Then he has the diary with a hole in it. And Ginny just starts crying. And she's like, I tried to tell you, but I couldn't say it in front of Percy. And she's like, it was me the whole time. She admits to what Harry already knows that she did, but he also knows already that she was being possessed by Riddle. And so she's like, where's Riddle? The last thing I remember is him coming out of the diary. And Harry's like, hey, look at the diary again. Here's a hole in it, and it's not just no regular hole. So he's like, yeah, he's done. And the basilisk, and it's over, and let's get the hell out of here. And she's like, I'm going to be expelled. Which, I mean, even though, yeah, it's got to be great to know that you're not dead. She didn't really know that was an option anyway. She just sort of passed out. So her first thing upon waking is to think, man, now I'm going to be blamed for all this shit. Which is, is a legit thing to think. And she's like, she loves Hogwarts. She's like, I've been looking forward to coming here since Bill came, and now I'm going to have to leave. And she's, of course, worried about upsetting her parents and all of this. And her parents, who, of course, think she's dead right now, but she just hasn't even gotten that far in her thought process yet. And so they start heading out, and Fawkes is waiting on them, and so Fawkes sort of starts to lead the way back through the gloom and out through the tunnels and stuffs, and then they get back to finally they get back to the place where the rocks fell, and Ron is there, and Harry's like, Ginny's okay, and Ron's like, woo, and Ron pulls Ginny through the gap in the rocks, and he's all like trying to hug her, and she's like pushing him off because she's crying, and Ron's like, it's okay, you're good. And he's like, where did that bird come from? Which, by the way, this is actually the reason why I was thinking specifically that Fawkes definitely apparated, or at least in its own way, into the Chamber of Secrets, because otherwise Fawkes would have had to have flown down, and it would have passed right by Ron, and he couldn't have missed Fawkes. Not a small bird. So anyway, yeah. And he's like, and you've got a sword? And Harry's like, you know what? How about we don't talk about any of this shit right now? And he's like, I will explain it later. Because he doesn't want to, like, tell Ron about what Ginny's been doing right just now, like, just get the hell on. And so he's like, what about Lockhart? And he's like, oh yeah, he's over here. He doesn't. And Ron's like, he's in a bad way. Come see. But I mean, it's hard to feel bad for Lockhart because he was getting ready to erase their entire memories. And he's like, well, his memory's gone because the wand backfired. He doesn't know who he is or where he is or who we are. So he's just been kind of waiting. He's like, he's a danger to himself. So yeah, Lockhart has no idea what the fuck's going on. And blah, blah, blah. And Ron's like, have you ever thought about how we're going to get out of this thing? Like, we slid a long way down. And, or actually, I'm sorry, Harry's asking Ron that. And Ron's like, But then Fawkes kind of like moves into a position where it's like basically suggesting, like, you can grab on to me. And Ron notices that, and he's like, but we're, too heavy for a bird to pull us up there. And Harry's like, yeah, Fawkes isn't exactly your average birdie. So, sure enough, and Dumbledore does say it, like, again, he enumerates all of the, in that earlier chapter where Fawkes burns, he's like, tears have healing powers, they're very faithful, and they can carry very heavy loads, and whatever else he said, but those are the main things that apply to this chapter that I can think of off the top of my head. So anyway, that heavy loads bit comes into play here, so they all have to hold hands, and then Harry grabs onto Fawkes, and sure enough, it's like, it's not just like they're all having to like dangle from these tail feathers and like hang on for dear life. It's like they're imbued with some sort of like flying charm from Fawkes, and all they have to do is keep contact with him to like float up out of there, and he just sort of like guides them, because they all start feeling light and like sort of floaty. So anyway, so then they just fly up and out through the pipes, and and Lockhart completely doesn't know anything about anything right now. He's like, this is just like magic. And so, yeah, and so the wind's whipping through their hair and all that good shit, and the next thing you know, they all land in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom, and Myrtle's like, you're alive. And Harry's like, yeah, that's great, don't sound so fucking disappointed there, dead girl. And she's like, well, I was just thinking you could have shared my toilet, like. And Ron's like, ugh, jeez, Myrtle, that's fucking great of you. And Ron has to make a joke about Ginny liking Harry right now. He's like, oh, I think Myrtle's fond of you. You got competition, Ginny. And Ginny's starting to cry still, or still not again. She has been the whole time. So I'm like, all right, what do we do now? And of course, Fawkes is again leading the way, and so they follow Fawkes down the corridor, and they get to Professor McGonagall's office, and Harry knocks, and he pushes the door open, and that's the end of the chapter. That was not actually a book. Anyway, so yeah, we have one more chapter to go. The day has been saved, but there's still a few more things to sort out, as it were, and so the last chapter will do that. So we have one more chapter, and then we are on to The Prisoner of Azkaban, which most would say turned out to be the best movie, not because specifically of the book, but because of the director. But nonetheless, it's a good book too. I mean, even though it's not till the fourth one that they get longer and truly darker, but the tone darkens a good bit in Prisoner of Azkaban. So anyway, let's see. Well, let's do a little housekeeping here. Let's go to the tube of the U and click. Let's see what we got here. Judy pointed out that Lockhart was in Ravenclaw, which is something I asked in the previous video, which is amazing. But he's also and I guess this is probably from Pottermore. I need to start doing more Pottermore reading before I do episodes, but look people up and shit. Anyway, but apparently he was spoiled by his mother into thinking he was like the best thing in the world, and then he got to Hogwarts and realized that he wasn't really the most talented. But somehow the ego part stayed in his head. Let's see. Okay, so Judy also mentioned about the Obliviate, the memory charm that the trio do on the Death Eaters in Deathly Hallows after they escape from the wedding. But she also mentions the thing about Hermione's parents, and I can't remember where I heard this recently, but I think it was legit that hang on. Yeah, that Hermione didn't actually use a memory charm. She didn't wipe their memories of their past. She did something a little different, like a different kind of spell, or yeah, a different spell that implanted like different histories in their minds that would like make them think they didn't have a daughter and that they had different names. But she didn't. It's like the others just sort of obscured by this. But the way she did it is in such a way that if everything goes okay and she doesn't die, she can take it, she can undo it and take it back, and like they'll go back to being her parents, and she can explain to them what she's done. So that was so we don't get an explanation of what that is exactly, obviously, but because it all happens off camera anyway. But I think it was when I was reading one of those like, one of those damn articles where you have to click for like every fucking thing on a list. But anyway, it was like, X number of plot holes in Harry Potter that were actually totally solved, and that was one of them. And most of the quote unquote solutions were things that Rowling said after the fact, in like on Twitter or whatever, to like answer a question, or if it was on Pottermore or whatever. So anyway, yes, Isildu, it continues, and I will try to keep the pace for the next book. We'll see. I don't know. Any more comments on this video? And we talked about that. Let me just check my notifications. That's a better way to do it. I feel like Min said some things recently that... Oh, you know what? I'm on the wrong account. Hold, please, everyone. Yeah, Jessica Min mentioned in the Dueling Club chapter, like, how the hell did Malfoy conjure a fucking snake out of nowhere? I mean, and that's legit. I put an answer there, and it's not necessarily by any means. There's no definite thing there, but one might potentially be able to explain it by saying that maybe that Malfoy was taking some like some low key like private lessons in defense or in other things, dark art stuff. Who the fuck knows? Maybe Malfoy was like, Lucius was paying Snape like good money to teach Draco shit. Who knows? Either that, or he just was able to tell him what he needed to do and how he needed to do it. I mean, but it does seem like some pretty intense magic to. I mean, I realize that in theory you're saying a word and waving your wand a certain way, but there's more to it than that. Obviously, that's the way it's described. Like, there's certain things you have to understand and be thinking about, or sort of, focusing on, or whatever. So it is a bit of a stretch that Malfoy could produce a big black snake like that, but who knows? Who knows? Because, like, outside of that incident, like, they're not doing any kind of conjuring at all, pretty much. Like, they're still transfiguring things like mice and shit, like they're not conjuring animals from thin air, but who knows? Oh, and Diana Rook also mentioned a little, like a day or so ago, that when she was a preteen, she got a diary for Christmas, and it did indeed have the year on the outside, with each day of the year on the top of each page with blank lines after, just a blank page with lines below. So there's more evidence of the diary thing there with the year and whatnot. And I think that covers that stuff. Yeah, we got one more chapter, and we're gonna do it real soon. So come back and do that with us, and we will see you next time. Peace.